I saw this on Jason's Weird Reads, and naturally I had to follow suit because I loved it that much. This is a tag created originally by McWilliams. I will, of course, be tagging her channel and Jason's channels below. I'm not tagging anyone, but I hope you consider this just an open tag. If you are a horror reader, then why not just go ahead and do this? Because I think it's going to be pretty fun. There are 8 questions about the horror life in general, the horror addiction, what got us so invested and involved and freakishly in love with weird stuff. The first question is, what was the first horror movie you remember seeing? For me, this is kind of a weird question because it wasn't as if I wasn't allowed to watch them, or as if there was a moment in time where I got to see one crazy film and it blew my mind. For me, it was actually that I used to watch a lot of old movies with my father. And my dad would lie on the couch and the TV would be there, and I would be between my dad and the couch cushions, like just sinking ever deeper between him and the couch as things got scarier. And a lot of the movies we watched together were older because my dad liked older movies. So the movies that I remember most were usually black and white. And they're ones that maybe don't get as much attention today, like Freaks, which is an amazing film from the 30s. The Bad Seed, which was my original starting point for being addicted to all things sort of like psychopathic child and that sort of trope. I love that. I also vividly remember Creature of the Black Lagoon because I have a natural fear. I don't know if it's inherited or what, but I just have a natural fear of like deep open water. And I definitely watched that too young. We also watched stuff like the original The Fly, which I still remember vividly scenes of. So it wasn't for me like there was one movie. It was just, I just remember snippets of different films that really stuck in my mind and probably had more of an impact on me than I could say. But thanks to my dad for letting me watch movies at a horribly inappropriate young age. Maybe that sounds terrible to some people, but I really do think that it had a lot to do with my creative mind and just the way I view the world. Question number 2 is, what was the first horror book that you remember reading? I think for me it was probably those little kids Goosebumps series or some sort of cheap spin-off of those. I remember reading about ghouls and goblins, and in particular this one book, and I don't even know what the title was or if it was a short story or what, but I do remember the story itself and how much it terrified me. It was about this kid, and every night he would go to sleep and there was this little like light that kept coming from underneath his bed. He started to feel like he had to make sure he was closed up and like tucked in all the way, or else he would fall under and he might get sucked in. Like his cat gets sucked in and some of his toys and stuff. And that really, really freaked me out. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil this for you. So if anyone knows what it is, they can tell me and I can reread it as an adult because I would love to do that. But basically, eventually he does get pulled under. And what happens is like he's following this strange goblin-esque creature down these tunnels, and he gets his feet cut on the like rocks that are so jagged like glass. And he walks eventually, it feels like it takes forever, like some nightmare. And he ends up in some strange little vortex or portal or something. And that little goblin thing says to some other master that he serves that like, I've brought you a new one. And that little goblin thing gets to like exit the world and he gets to be a kid again, and this kid gets stuck down there. And I was so terrified that that would happen to me that I actually bought a trundle bed, you know, the ones with the bed underneath the bed, because I thought if I have another mattress under there, there's no way that there can be a portal to an evil world. It made perfect sense to me. And I'm still a little bit afraid that this might happen to me, and I still cannot sleep with any of my limbs outside of the covers, and I still think that maybe there could be a portal under there. I'm not sure. So if you know what that was, please let me know, because I would love to have a copy so that I can be freaked out as an adult or just completely laugh that I thought it was that scary. Number 3 is, what is the movie that made you a horror fan? Honestly, it was probably the ones that I watched with my dad when I was really little. I mean, I watched these things when I was like 4 or 5, so before I had a way to express what they meant to me, I still think they meant something to me. That early start is really what got me into it. I don't know if I can point to a specific movie that was my origin point, but I can say that growing up, I remember most vividly things like Jaws and Alien, the whole Alien franchise, the whole series, as things that I liked to watch over and over again, and things that probably freaked me out the most or made me jump or made me feel something more than, say, slasher films. Number 4 is, what is the book that made you a horror fan? I think as a kid, it was definitely the whole scary stories to tell in the dark thing. I loved storytelling. I think certain parts of America are just known for storytelling, and I think I'm lucky enough to come from one of those places where people tell tall tales. And I remember reading those as a kid and kind of studying the way you would manipulate a story or tell a story through those to scare people. And we would read them at sleepovers and at campfires, and it was just like a fun, spooky, scary memory. But I loved those, and I think that as a book when I was young made me a fan of the art of being scared and scaring others in a safe, fun, human way. So that was definitely me as a kid. As an adult, though, I have to say it was probably the vampire stories, the classic Dracula, and then Interview with the Vampire, because the worlds are so complete and so immersive and so familiar yet so mysterious. And that really enchanted me, and I loved that about them. Number 5 is, what is your favorite horror movie of all time? It's really hard to pick favorites, and I hate doing it, but I will say of all the movies that I've watched in my life, and I love watching movies, the movie that I've watched the most, and that really speaks to me on a lot of different levels, is Aliens. I adore Aliens. I think it is overall one of the best creative endeavors that has ever been completed in such a satisfying, fulfilling way. I love all the themes it plays with. I love the whole concept of this little team of people, and that sometimes man is the real monster, and the idea that that the company is like the bad guy is just such a fun premise for the everyday Joe. I just think it's a great film, and I love it so much beyond the counterparts of the story. I love Ellen Ripley, who meant so much to me as a girl growing up, because she was so strong and badass, like in every sense of the word. Like, she was a woman's woman, you know what I mean? She was just incredible, and I really looked up to her, and I still look up to her, and I love her very, very much. I could go on for a long time, and I feel that I'm in danger of doing so we should move on to the next question, which is number 6. What is your favorite horror book? Again, I can't pick favorites. Why would you ask this of me? But I will say that it's probably a varied answer. If I can give you a few rather than an absolute, I would be very grateful. Gosh, so many. In a classic sense, obviously, as I said, I love Dracula, I love Interview with the Vampire, but I also love Shirley Jackson, particularly The Haunting of Hill House, of which I have the first paragraph memorized because I think it is the most perfect first paragraph ever written. In a more modern sense, I loved You when it came out. I mean, it really messed with my mind in the best possible way. I loved Bird Box. I loved Nosferatu. I am such a varied reader that it's really hard for me to pick favorites. I think if someone wants me to do a favorite, they have to like really drill down to the absolute minutia of the genre or the trope or something, and then I can give you that. But that's just a few just random off my head thoughts that I can give you on books that are horror that I've really enjoyed over the years. Question number 7, what is your favorite horror trope? I like a lot of different stuff. I like, man is the ultimate monster, this whole idea that, horrible things can be going on. They can be a horrible creature or a monster, but you still can't trust your fellow man. I find that such a fun concept for horror. I love the themed ones, like the Christmas ones or the Valentine's Day ones, where I think the trope is called something silly like horror doesn't settle for an average Tuesday or something. But the themed ones I always think are fun, probably because I don't like Christmas and I love Halloween, and I always want things to be darker than they are sometimes. I don't know. Psychologists probably have a lot of fun unpacking that one. I love some of the average stuff, but I can't help myself, and I don't think I should be ashamed. I love zombies. I love the whole haunted house thing. I absolutely love. And I don't understand ever when people are upset about that as a trope, because I think it's part of the fun. It's part of the formula, and I just enjoy it every time. I also really love twist endings, like when you have no idea what's happening until the very end, and then you're just like, what? And you're just, you can't even figure out what's happening. As long as it's done in a way that I get to decide either or, I really enjoy it. If it's too ambiguous, then I don't like it, but I do just love a twist ending. And finally, number 8, why do you love horror? Wow, that is a very deep question. I think horror is one of the most honest genres. Sure, in all of its extreme fantasy, its ask of you to suspend your disbelief, for all of that, it is the most honest, most true genre, because through monsters, through the scariness, it's speaking to something inherent in all of us. And that's not something every genre can do or can do well. I think the fun of horror is that it plays on that. And I've always said, you've probably heard me say this in a bunch of different compilation horror videos, is that horror is a very personal genre. And I think that's because the truth of different types of horror speak to different people. There's a lot of beauty in that. And there's a lot of beauty, I think, in accepting our mortality, our inevitability, the role that fear plays in our life, and the sort of balance of the good and the bad in so many different myriad of ways. I think it's just a beautiful genre. You might notice that I tend to go towards more lyrical, more poetic, more tragedy horrors rather than the fun slasher type stuff, which I also enjoy, but it's always the deep, melodic, sad horror that always sticks with me the most. And I think it's because it's like a mirror. It's a mirror to a lot of us, and like any good book, it makes you feel like you're not alone. Lots of people misunderstand the horror genre, and I think it's kind of just a place for the freaks to go. And I think there's a little bit of freak, a little bit of weirdo in everybody. And whether or not people admit that, horror brings that out, and it allows us to connect over not just silly fears, but deep ones. And the best horror always has a little bit of hope. Sometimes that hope doesn't come out the way you plan, and I think we like to see that as a reality in our own lives reflected in fiction. I hope that made sense and I didn't ramble on too long, but regardless, I did want to do this tag. It was such a fun idea, and I think as someone who reads a lot of different genres, it's probably confusing to people why I read so many different things, and maybe this will enlighten you as to why I like horror so much, and hopefully just draw attention to horror as a genre. I need to make a recommendation video for horror, and if you would like me to do that, please drop a comment below. Otherwise, I hope you take this as an open invitation to do this tag. Please do, and if so, definitely tag the original creator, tag me so I can see it. I would really love to hear your answers to these questions. As I was watching the other videos, I realized how personal of questions they are and how sort of revealing they are about the different people and different horror readers. So I hope you'll find that enjoyable as well. I'll link to a few of the other ones I watched. If you like this video, give it a quick thumbs up, drop a comment below. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like all things bookish, then go ahead, press that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.